morning. I'm Khaled Al-Mekwad, the UNIDO representative and head of the Regional Office for Southern Africa. It is my pleasure to welcome you today to three side events hosted by UNIDO and its partners at the Africa Energy Indaba. The United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, is the UN specialized agency that promotes inclusive and sustainable industrial development for poverty reduction, inclusive globalization, and environmental sustainability. This also harnesses the full potential of industry's contribution to the achievement of sustainable development and lasting prosperity for all. Energy is a key pillar where UNIDO is joining forces with its partners in South Africa and the Southern Africa region to address some of the challenges and barriers facing the country. The importance of energy to the South African economy was further highlighted by the Minister of Finance in his budget speech last week. In our session today, expert panelists will address some of UNIDO's groundbreaking work in the country and the sub-region, including opportunities for industry to benefit from this work. In the first session, lessons from international award-winning project, the South African Industrial Energy Efficiency Project, IEE, we will hear the views of panelists closely involved in the project. The IEE project was awarded the highest international accolade for an energy program, the International Energy Project of the Year, by the Global Association of Energy Engineers in October 2020. The project received the award in recognition of its efforts to transform the energy use patterns in Southern African industry and mainstream energy management systems across environment economic sector. Panelists will share key lessons from this award-winning project from various perspectives and will highlight opportunities for industry to use energy management as a strategic tool for post-COVID-19 recovery. The second session, Accelerating the Development of the Battery Manufacturing Value Chain in South Africa, will focus on the findings and recommendations of a report on a study commissioned by UNIDO's Low Carbon Transport Project into potential opportunities and technical pathways to develop the lithium-ion battery manufacturing value chain in South Africa. It will also include the SADC perspective on mineral beneficiation and battery manufacturing with special attention to the potential for regional industrial integration. The session will conclude with policy perspectives on the findings from the study by the DTIC. The third and final session, Developing Sustainable Markets for Energy Efficient Lighting and Appliances, EELA, information will be shared on the activities of the EELA project, including the technical assistance and co-financing facility that will provide advisory support and grant funding. An expert panel will then address the following. Discuss challenges and opportunities to ensure active participation by the private sector in the Eastern African region and the SADC region. Explore proposals to establish sustainable markets for energy efficient lighting and appliances in the two regions, and conclude by highlighting the financial and non-financial support and institutional frameworks required to build a sustainable market for energy efficient lighting and appliances. I trust that you will find these sessions informative and useful, and we'd like to encourage you to engage with panel members and UNIDO staff. You can do this via live chat during the sessions or follow up with us afterwards. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you to Mr. Khaled Al-Mekwad, the UNIDO representative and the head of the regional offices in Southern Africa. The United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and I think that's the last time we're going to say the full word, UNIDO is much easier to say. They have been a partner of the NCPC, where I represent, for as long as the National Cleaner Production Center has existed. And we're really grateful for UNIDO. We're really grateful for the passion that they show in generating partnerships and funding for projects such as the IEE projects, which we'll discuss today, as well as the newly launched Eco-Industrial Parks program in South Africa. Thank you, Khaled, and thank you to all your colleagues, both in Vienna and South Africa, for your continued support. So, why are we here today? Well, I am Julie Wells, and I am the Communication and Operations Manager of the National Cleaner Production Center, or NCPC, in South Africa. The NCPC is a program established to 2002-03 by UNIDO and the South African government, and it is our mandate to assist industry to transition to a green economy. That includes resource efficiency, it includes cleaner production, it includes setting up clean technologies where we can, and our scope is broad. But our passion is deep, and energy efficiency is one of those significant passions. So we are here today to discuss how South Africa can embrace energy efficiency going forward and actually improve our transition to a green economy. As always, you can post your questions on the chat box, and we will gladly follow up with you if we don't get back to one of your questions. I'm joined today by an amazing panel with 5 or 6 hours worth of experience to share each, but I promise you we'll limit them to 5 or 6 minutes. So Rana Ghonaim is our first panelist. She is from UNIDO HQ. Alf Hartzenberg joins us as the long-standing IEE project manager from the NCPC, recently left us. Julian Seke from Tiger Brands, and Moses Matong from this wonderful ESCO center, or the ESCO industry that we have in South Africa, who are the foot soldiers of energy efficiency. I will ask each panel member a question, and they will take about 5 minutes to address that issue. After each panel member has discussed their particular vantage point, we will have follow-up questions. And at that point, we will try and answer any questions in the chat box, but we won't be doing it over live video. So first of all, let's give a little bit of background. Why are we here? Because in 2020, a year when there was not a lot of good news, after 10 years of implementing an energy efficiency in industry, the South African Industrial Energy Efficiency Project, or the IEE project as we like to call it, won the highest accolade of its nature in the world. We won the AEE, which is the Association of Energy Engineers, as I'm sure most of you know, International Energy Project of the Year. It is our intention today to share some of that impact, but also to touch on how we can replicate this, how organizations and companies in South Africa can continue this good work and continue to save, save, save. In a decade of energy efficiency, the cumulative savings in the IEE project now stand at a staggering 6,524 gigawatt hours of energy. I'm not an engineer, but I know that that's a lot of energy, a lot of electricity, and a lot of load shedding. This translates to about 6.4 million tons of CO2 mitigated, and the equivalent of about 5.3 billion rand in cost savings. Now, one of the success factors of the project is its multidisciplinary approach. It does not just employ engineers to go into plants and optimize systems, but like an energy management system itself, it has an integrated and a holistic approach, addressing policy, standards, skills, and behavior change in addition to the technical aspects. This approach forms the foundation of a lot of international work that UNIDO does, and in fact, forms the basis of the Sustainable Development Goals. And so to discuss the project from a UNIDO perspective and from a global perspective, Rana Ghonaim is the Chief Energy Systems and Infrastructure, she heads up, should I say, the Energy Systems and Infrastructure Division at UNIDO. That's quite a mouthful, Rana. She leads the development of programs that promote sustainable energy use in the industrial and commercial sectors in the Middle East and across Africa. And she heads up Global Industrial Energy Efficiency Accelerator as part of the Sustainable Energy for All. She has over 20 years international experience in the development and implementation of programs that respond to many and multilateral environmental agreements. I'm sure you will agree that she is very well positioned to address this from a global perspective. So Rana, my question for you this morning is, what was the reason for establishing the IEE project specifically in South Africa? And what does UNIDO believe made it such a success? But also, how has it been used to actually replicate this in other countries across the world? Over to you.
Hi, Julie. Good morning, everyone. It's really my pleasure to be joining you here today and speak about our work on the Industrial Energy Efficiency Program in South Africa and globally. Well, why did we start this project? I think UNIDO stands for a long time on work on energy efficiency, because energy efficiency remains one of the most cost-effective solutions to actually mitigate climate change. And so we've started our work on developing a methodology to support industry in implementing, in a very easy way, energy management systems and system optimization. And I think this was one of the actually very first things that helped also in the success of this project in South Africa and globally, because what we are advocating for is improving the knowledge base and competence of companies, of experts that are working in the field, and helping industries find easy and very cost-effective, or even sometimes no-cost ways to implement the energy efficiency. So this was really one of the very first elements that helped in basically the success of this project in South Africa and globally, the robust methodology, basically. I think three more elements for me made this South Africa project particularly successful, and I would say these were the right time, people, and ownership, honestly. The right time, because actually when we started the program 10 years ago in South Africa, it was a period of where industries also faced quite a lot of blackouts. And imagine how blackouts affect our day-to-day life. On top, in industries, actually, industry needs reliable source of energy, reliable source of electricity, because they need to produce the goods that they're responsible for. And at the end of the day, when they are facing this intermittent supply of energy that not only affects, the energy efficiency of their production, but it really affects their whole production. So this period of starting the project really helped industries to overcome some of the elements of this energy security. The second one is people, and many amazing people who are joined with us also today were responsible actually for the success of this project. But I would say also broadly, there was quite a big appetite in South Africa for absorbing this knowledge that I mentioned in the very beginning and taking this further to implement. There was this, inquisition that everyone really wanted to learn more, and everyone wanted to apply it more and come back with better results. And I think that is really a very essential ingredient in the success of any project or program. And finally, the last point of success, I would say also the ownership. And that comes basically to the role that institutions like DTI and the NCPC and others played in really taking the topic and taking it to the next level by working on policies, by working on a more rigorous program to complement what the donors are also providing to support the project. So yeah, I would say these are all really great reasons that made this project a success, and that made us at UNIDO very proud to actually support that. Now, as I said, the methodology is a global methodology that we apply, and actually we have been working across the board in more than 20 countries promoting the same methodology of implementing basically energy management systems and system optimization, and developing this into a global program, which is the Industrial Energy Efficiency Accelerator, which targets actually bringing another 15 countries also on board. The main, I would say, benefit as well for us is having had this great success in South Africa and a great cadre of experts that worked across the project. Really, South Africa became also a knowledge hub for our program. So we've used across the board many of the experts, many of the knowledge, many of the case studies that came out of South Africa to support our work in other countries. Yeah, I can go on and on, Julie, but I'm not sure if I've reached my 5 minutes or not. So let me know if I
I'm
should.
going to be honest with you. I actually didn't time you, but I'm just gonna touch on one thing, and then I'm going to hand over to Alf. I'm just gonna ask you to just briefly just go back to what you were mentioning just now about the robust methodology. So if you could just, before we actually move on, if you could just mention the energy management systems and the systems optimization approach in just 1 minute's more detail, so that that's a good foundation for the rest of the discussions.
Sure. I mean, energy management systems, it's a methodology to more sustainably manage energy in an enterprise or a commercial facility. So basically, in the past, industries or commercial facilities used to have an issue with their bills rising. And so then they turned to make an audit and implement an energy efficiency project without having this in-depth understanding of what are the causes for my inefficiency? What are the main machinery in the enterprise that are causing that efficiency? And how can I optimize not just the individual components in the factory, but also this more system, like a motor system, and not just the motor or the fan and so on. So this is essentially, putting this into a framework that manages energy by identifying the significant energy users, identifying the improvement points, and putting a plan to ensure that there is, at the end of the day, a continual improvement in efficiency, but also potentially bringing even renewable energy at the end after you have achieved all what you can with efficiency. So it's really a framework of improvement that we are implementing and looking at the system and not just as a component.
Thank you. It all sounds totally logical. It all sounds like something we should have been doing for centuries, or at least for decades. And it's amazing that we had to actually kickstart this to renew our thinking. One of the other things that Rana touched on is people. And in every team, there are people that leave a legacy and stand head and shoulders above the rest and lead from the front. And in the IEE project team, Alf Hudsenberg is one such person. He was a mentor, a leader, but he was also a roll up your sleeves and get them involved in the greasy systems implementer of energy management in many, many plants. Alf led the IEE project as National Project Manager at the NCPC for almost 7 years, until his retirement from the NCPC in January. But his vast experience would have been a significant loss to the energy sector. However, we're thrilled to say that he is now advising and consulting UNIDO, SANEDI, the IFC, and he is still a voice of guidance in the last leg of the IEE project, which incidentally comes to an end as a project in December 2021. Alf is a multiple IEE expert, both in energy management systems and ESO, and a trainer. But most importantly for this panel, he led the IEE project team to that award-winning status that we're discussing today. So Alf, welcome. And can you explain for us the value of the integrated approach of the IEE project, how you harnessed both local skills, demonstration, and a methodology that actually really helped people not only to change their mindsets, but to save energy as well. Thanks, Alf.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Thanks for that introduction, and a good question. I think it's a question that touches and probably gets to the heart of why and how the project did what it achieved. And you know, the rationale for an integrated project approach is justified by some of the basic findings we encountered and learned through our work in South Africa. And I'll just enumerate 3 of those. One of them is that most energy efficiency, I say most, not all, most energy efficiency improvement projects in industry are generally achieved through changes in how energy is managed rather than through the installation of new technologies. And that's true. Also, that energy efficiency is generally not integrated into daily management practices. We find that that still is the case, and that particularly was prevalent when we launched in 2010. And we found that energy was managed almost separately in a siloed focus. And finally, the final point that backs up and supports this integrated rationale is that an integrated and systematic approach is required where all levels of management participate in the management of energy in the plant. It is not a top management domain and exclusively for the operator level or middle management. It requires it demands a very pervasive participation. And while challenges to energy security brought about energy efficiency to the fore, it requires an integrated approach to develop solutions to those challenges. And this addresses your question in a big way. And components of this integrated approach that we addressed and we implemented and we applied in South Africa are the following. A regulatory framework that promotes conscious and effective energy management programs in industrial sectors and plants. That's critical. And at the outset, we suffered from very low policy coverage in energy efficiency in South Africa. 10 years on, the landscape is quite different. National standards to reference and acknowledge those programs, and the IEE project worked very hard at promoting and fostering and partnering the South African Bureau of Standards and SANAS in getting that adopted in South Africa to guide and support the work we were doing in energy management systems. Industrial plant leadership commitment to support and lead energy management initiatives in the plant. And I'm talking leadership, not lip service and not skepticism, but true leadership. Capacitating ESCOs and in industrial plant personnel with the necessary technical skills to implement and sustain energy measures, both at a senior and operator level. And there was a dearth of that. We found there was a high reliance on outsourced services, contracted vendors. And critical in integrating the work we did was to bring those skill sets into the plant. Critically and equally important was access to finance to implement energy efficiency projects through awareness raising for portfolio and credit management teams in banks, and partnering with banks and ESCOs in developing an effective funding mechanism for energy efficiency projects. There was money. There was no access to money. And the access wasn't there because banks and financial institutions didn't understand energy. They could not understand the concept of funding a kilowatt hour saving. So that was an important component of that integrated approach. And finally, targeting poverty alleviation through gender mainstreaming initiatives that became quite pervasive throughout project activities. So in this way, the IEE project coalesced the objectives and efforts of government, industry, ESCOs, the financial sector, and also civil society to address the national need for enhanced industrial energy performance. And I want to wrap up with an example, a real life example of how this integrated approach is an absolute must to render a program like this effective. In discussions with a large steel plant in the Western Cape, who were seeing some really tough times, a distressed market, competition from the East, and really was finding it hard to survive. It became clear when engaging them and drawing on the lessons from steel plants in Great Britain, who had suffered a similar plight or were undergoing a serious restructure, that energy efficiency measures on its own was not the salvation, but it was one of a basket of measures that were necessary, an integrated basket of measures necessary to assist the steel sector to get out of it. And that included, amongst others, policies that enabled the steel sector, the iron and steel sector, to remain competitive. Measures to avoid dumping. Tariff discussions on tariffs, special tariffs for steel and just for metal plants in South Africa. So there was and considering the multiplier effect within the community, the immediate community from which the steel plant drew their employees, it would have been devastating to see that close. So there was a big civil society component in that as well, and discussion about that and its contribution to just the community, the immediate and surrounding communities. So an integrated approach became an absolute critical quiver in our armory when we engaged South African industry. And for that reason, Julie, had we done it any differently, had we purely just focused on the technical issues and the energy systems within the plant, we may not have succeeded to the level that we did. And largely that was due to an integrated approach.
Thank you, Alf. That was a very in-depth answer. And if you're watching this, I encourage you to actually go back and watch this session again if you can, and actually take some notes, because Julian Seke, correct me in your answer if I'm wrong, but this integrated approach that took place on a national and a global level that Rana and Alf are talking about, this robust methodology that is integrated into that, those are the things that a company like Tiger Brands, like any commercial entity, whether they're running a factory or a fleet of trucks or a big sort of portfolio of commercial buildings, this integrated approach can actually help save companies money. Now Julie is really one of the things that the IEE project is all about. She is a passionate woman in energy. So our gender mainstreaming that Alf touched on is extremely important to everything we do. And so we're thrilled to have Julie here today. She is the Risk and Environmental Sustainability Director for Tiger Brands, who as a company need no introduction in this country. There she takes care of the organization's sustainability as it concerns health, safety, and security. Not only is she an experienced engineer, but she is also an energy management systems expert through our very own IEE project. And she's been responsible for making sure that multiple plants in Tiger Brands actually become more resource efficient. So Julie, welcome. And it's wonderful to have you on one of my panels again. Can you, touching on these things that Rana and Alf already mentioned, about the people, about the leadership, about the robust methodology, can you explain to us what motivated Tiger Brands to, well, just not only to sign up a number of its plants, but also how you use this energy management approach to actually meet your business objectives? Does it work? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Julie. It absolutely works, right? But I think the first speakers have already touched on those sort of key elements in terms of it starts with the people, right? And what I've found is we had to be deliberate in saying, how do we deliver some sort of capability building, right? For especially our key engineers who are interested in terms of getting into that space. And fortunately, I think through NCPC, we could actually register quite a lot of our employees through the programs that you guys offer. And we were deliberate in saying, you know, we're going to go with the 80-20 principle when we started, because we are quite a huge sort of organization. I mean, if you're looking after 42 manufacturing facilities, you have to be deliberate in terms of saying, where do I start so that I can immediately start showing the savings, especially to EXCO, when you know that at a later stage you would actually have to be requesting any sort of capital investment. So we started off by saying, look, let's make sure that the guys understand what is required. And we registered people on courses like the energy management system. We were also fortunate to get a couple of our candidates successfully through the energy management system expert program, which was delivered through sort of in affiliation also with UNIDO. And then even also some of the energy system optimization courses, both at advanced level and sort of entry level. And there we targeted sort of steam system optimization and a few of the motors. But it was also very much in line with, at that point in time, the engineering disciplines that I actually had on hand and the people that I put on program, so that then I could actually deploy them to the different facilities for them to undertake some of those initiatives. I have found that more than anything else, when we talk about the agenda around energy efficiency, people just immediately jump to thinking, oh my God, she's going to be asking for multiple millions of rands to get the organization to deliver the savings. But I found that there's quite a lot of benefit in just driving behavioral change, right? So what I appreciated through the programs that the guys actually were listed on was to say, once we've done the assessment, which is actually really supported by a multidisciplinary team through the programs plus external experts, right? Because we didn't have the expertise in-house, especially when we started sort of like 6 years ago, right? It was important to have someone, which we were fortunate to get also through NCPC, that could guide us, right? In terms of prioritizing, plus even also when you do the necessary costing, when you put forward the recommendations, be clear and saying, these are the quick wins that we're going to actually target. And normally those don't require quite a lot of money behind it. It talks to the behavioral change. It just talks about putting simple controls and then just being deliberate. And a simple one was, okay, if we're going to have to be doing changes around lighting, are we going to follow the replacement route, or do we just uproot everything, pay for it upfront? I don't think anybody would have gone for that. So over the years, I've seen quite a lot of the facilities actually adopt what we started later on and continue to improve on it. I think this year, we decided that we were going to just do a back to basics campaign, very much focused on savings around our boilers. So, and the reason why we did that, we found that I have lost quite a lot of people that had been on quite a lot of the expert programs that you guys delivered. So the learning from that is you have to continue upskilling the people, right? Because they move on, and the next thing you wake up, you actually don't have the expertise that you had. Tough times for most organizations. We don't have the luxury of having a blanket check to bring in consultants and expertise, but the journey continues. You're seeing legislation actually being tighter around our reporting in terms of whether it's directly or indirectly linked, benefits from, if I look at the Department of Environmental Affairs, they've mandated us to consistently deliver reporting around greenhouse gas emissions, right? And if you start looking at some of the recommendations we made a few years ago, what we were targeting then was energy savings, right? But deliberately in the tables that actually went to Expo, it was already showing you what will be the benefits that you will realize from a GH perspective, or even also from a carbon tax perspective. I have found it quite beneficial, right? It hasn't been easy. And the reason why you hear me mention that back to basics campaign is because I think in the last 2 years, we've managed to get quite a lot of money out of our exco. This year, they're saying, oh no, actually, you know what, prioritize. And I also have to go through the circle again of getting the new engineers. People are coming in to say, guys, this is what we've done historically. I'm seeing shortfalls in this area. So let's focus. In the areas where we've got like big compressors, this is what we've done historically. Less energy savings that we would have landed for the business previously. And I think that for me has really been the key learnings, because it's the simple things, right, that deliver the results. And if you have, I think by default, especially from an engineering perspective, we prefer the more complicated things, then you start losing the mileage. And that for me has been really critical, to say to the guys, look, just go back and do what we said was a core function for us. I think that's really in essence.
Great. Thanks, Julie. You touched on so many great things that I couldn't even possibly pull them all out. But again, if you can go back and listen, I just want to ask companies who are listening, people who are on this conference, do you know about the IEE project? Do you know about the NCPC and the other mechanisms that we have in place to support you guys? I mean, Julie mentioned the training. She mentioned someone coming in to advise. She mentioned access to all of this support. It is funded by donors and funding and technical organizations such as UNIDO and its partners, and through the DTIC. there is help available. And so if what you're hearing now sounds interesting to you, like, well, that's great for them, but geez, I don't have time for this. You know, contact us, and also listen to our next speaker. Talk about it not having time. I don't know about the rest of the panel, but Moses, I've also run a small company. For 10 years, I ran a tiny company with me and 2 other people, and I know that the day-to-day life of an SMME is not easy. But Moses is one of those pioneers and one of those passionate people who want to make sure that the energy services industry in this country survives. So he is the former chairperson of the ESCO Association, which is an affiliate of the South African Energy Efficiency Confederation. Moses has also got lots of letters behind his name, including CEM, but most important to us is the expert and a qualified trainer in multiple IEE disciplines. Moses is one of the foot soldiers, as I mentioned earlier in the session, the people who go out into these plants and make the magic happen. And Julie was touching on the momentum and going back to basics. Well, I don't know. My use an example. My daughter, who's a very sporty person, sat inside most of 2020 in lockdown with no access to her team sports. And well, needless to say, she is not quite as fit as she was, and she is dying out on her sports field this year. So if you lose that momentum, Moses, then people like you have to come back in and start from scratch, don't they? So Moses, why don't you maybe tell the people as a perspective from an ESCO and from somebody who walks those factory plants and those commercial buildings, how, first of all, did the training in energy efficiency help you, but also how can it help others? And specifically, the approach, has it helped you to become a better service provider to your clients? But also, do you think it's helped or it can help others to expand not only the services of small companies, but also inside these larger organizations? And over to you, Moses.
Thanks, Julie. I must say the IEE project has had a big impact, not only me, but on the rest of companies or individuals like myself. First of all, when I started out, I'll just tell my story because I know it better, but I think it actually parallels or maps what has happened to other people as well. My interaction into the market or my entrance into the market, I found that there was a few companies who were ESCOs who had the CEM certification, and then there was a lot of specialists which had I might say dubious credentials because we didn't know they are specialists, but where did they get their accreditation or certification? So if you look at what NCPC or IEE project has actually done, it has actually brought into place proper training and certification, and above all, continuing education through the CPD points that they offer to end users and experts who continues to develop their skills. So what has happened is that it has actually formalized the training, and also by doing so, made it possible for the new entrants to enter the market because now they had a training partner that they can actually go and learn and then be able to offer their skills to the industry. So I mentioned that there was few experts and also CM certification. So CM certification was more, like offering general energy audits. But what the IE project has done through energy systems optimization, it has actually segmented those technologies and really created true experts in those technologies, because once you have done your first level energy audit, you can't end there. If you want to implement and to make a significant change, you need to understand the science behind different key technologies so that you can really have a telling implementation that changes things. And that's what the NCPC has done. But not only that, in doing so, it has actually provided service offerings that individuals like myself or companies, small companies like myself, could actually then adopt those service offerings, all of them or individually, depending what you like. It gave you something that you could actually go out and sell. But not only that, it equipped you And through its training, because if you look at the trainings that has been offered, we get, at most you get a 5-day training. But NCPC or IE project actually offered, for expert level, it offered a year-long training, which is comprised of theoretical knowledge and then a practical implementation in an organization, and then certify you to be an expert who's able to go out there and really make a change. And that was actually mind-blowing. It actually exploded the ESCO market. It brought a whole lot new people into the space, and it really revitalized it. And in so doing, and I think Alf will say more again about the kind of results that IE project has achieved. It has achieved it through opening up the market to a whole lot of individuals, a whole lot of small companies, which were now able to go out there and really make a change. So training was a catalyst, but the more telling catalyst was the funding that was offered by IE project, which allowed the new entrants to actually be employed and go out there and make change in a lot of industries. Through implementing of energy management, through implementing of doing audits, and then also doing energy systems optimization, which then brought the results that today the IE project claims. It also prepared the landscape for us new entrants by actually hosting a lot of 2-day end user training on energy management, energy systems, which actually prepared the companies, because these were offered to companies a lot, and then but they were also made as a prerequisite for consultants to do expert level. So when we go to companies are already able. So it was like the first stage of preparation for the companies to adopt, because they now know what when we come in what we're talking about. And they have already been given a teaser. They knew now they wanted it, but they just needed a consultant to come and help them to do this things. So that was the main impact for me of the IE project. But for me as well, it really made engineering interesting again, because it started to be very boring. I needed a change, and sometimes you need a change, but you don't know what change you want until that day when I met Alf with the IE people from overseas to do compressed air systems assessments. Then I knew that this is the change I wanted. And from there on, I have been with IE project. I've done all the courses that are on the show. And I must say now, I'm also a COO of a biogas company that deals with biogas treatment. And I'm also now implementing, installing solar PV. But why I'm mentioning this, but because the IE project actually influences what I'm doing. Before any biogas or before any solar PV is done, we do first energy efficiency, because we know that this is the first leg. So it has actually influenced my career significantly, and it influences what I bring into the boardrooms. My IE perspective is always comes strong, and it shines wherever I am, because people get a flavor of something different that they haven't been introduced to. So that's basically, I think, my impression of the project.
Thanks, Moses. I'm going to come back to you just now because I didn't pose this follow-up question to you, so I want to give you a minute to think. I want to pop around to everybody and I want to ask them a quick follow-up question, like a 30-second question, 90-second answer, kind of wrap up. Now, Moses, mine to you is going to be this. What can the energy sector do to make sure that the legacy that you just talked about continues for the next 10 years and the 10 years after? What can you as an energy sector do to make sure that happens? So I'll come back to you now. Alf, let's start with you. As a going forward, what challenges did this project encounter that we maybe overcome, or maybe didn't overcome, that industry and government must make sure that we do address going forward to make sure this carries on?
Some of the challenges that we faced, and we've probably learned a lot from them, Julie, is and this may be controversial, but a legacy of cheap energy. I mean, we are seeing a 15% increase in electricity tariffs in South Africa shortly, and people are moaning that. But comparatively speaking, and because historically it was so cheap, it was a problem that we had witnessed early on in the project. The way companies were laid out, designs, the institutional mindsets in companies were still that of cheap energy. Also, effectively, from a government's perspective, is to look at the regulatory framework and be more effective about it. Focus on energy efficiency more. The IRP makes scant reference to energy efficiency. The National Energy Efficiency Strategy is a great document and really can do a lot more in that regard. Minimum energy performance standards are just some of the opportunities to increase energy efficiency policy cover in South Africa. And that challenge still remains. I think Julie alluded to this, lack of top management commitment, lip service and skepticism. And in many cases, we are finding, especially after COVID in 2020, we are re-engaging companies as we did in 2010 that really have one priority, and that's to survive. So dealing with competing priorities. And as a result, what we're witnessing again in 2021 that we saw in 2010 is this constrained rationality that comes around or arises because of that. The resistance to behavior change in some instances is still there, and I think by and large we've addressed most of that. Sadly, Julie, misleading energy performance reporting or lack of understanding that you need to spend to save. You know, the understanding in top management, the fear in top management, as Julie alluded to, is that whenever you talk energy efficiency projects, there's this kind of a dollar sign that seems to surface in their minds about how much they need to spend. And it's not really about that. You don't have to spend to save initially. Lack of access to finance still remains an ongoing battle. We are seeing through the efforts of the project, we're seeing two of the big 5 banks in South Africa now actively engaging the space. And I believe we will only be satisfied when we have all of the big 5 banks doing it. But that's a challenge that continues. Ownership of energy management in the plant. It's an element that nobody makes sure where it resides and who's responsible for it. So that's a challenge. Lack of integration, as we discussed in my first question. And also the lack of the technical skills. And the fact that Julie mentioned that is so critical. Life does not stand still. And I can remember the CEO and COO of a large airports plant say to me, Alf, if I say 10% of my energy every year, does that mean in 10 years I won't consume any energy? Life doesn't work like that. But also life doesn't stand still. So there's always machines that degrade over time, there's plant and personnel that leave you that need to be. So this focus on energy and the challenges we face, I don't believe will diminish over time, Julie. They will remain there.
I told you he was passionate, didn't I? Thank you, Alf. That's really encouraging, even though there are challenges. Julian Seke, can you remember or can you see, let me put it this way, can you see any unexpected benefits from energy management? I don't know, Alf, what do you guys call them? You have a phrase for them. Quickly unmute. Tell me what it is you call them.
The non-energy benefits.
Non-energy benefits. There we go. Any unexpected benefits that you saw in your plants that other companies could enjoy if they took this road?
So I think for us as a business, specifically from a Tiger Brands perspective, you know, what I am proud to have seen is how people, especially within the engineering community, right, quickly began to realize that if you are consistently, right, delivering any sort of energy savings from one of the metrics in terms of that we actually report on both, it's our absolute energy usage and our intensity energy usage, right? So immediately from key performance indicators, that environmental scorecard, the guys started to see an immediate increase. And because we normally do sort of at the end of the year, what we call sort of our Tiger Stripes Awards or whatever, one of the criteria in terms of award and there's kind of who's our environmental stewardship. So what it's done is to increase this competition within the business, which was historically not there, right? In terms of I want to be the better performing person when we talk about environmental sustainability KPIs. Then the other one that I think we went back to review sort of our carbon disclosure program, right? Reporting in the industry. And we had to do this because we've had a new chairman coming in, and to see that steady decline in terms of our greenhouse gas emissions, right? And having to account in terms of where it came from, that has been an added benefit. We are now in that phase where everyone is talking about carbon tax. Okay, there's been one or two boo-boos in terms of investment where I've actually had to roll my eyes to expert to say, this is what I told you last year, now you've gone and signed off this capital investment, you're impacting, our carbon emissions. And that is part and parcel of some of the things that when we started, right, as soon as you've done the assessment report, the report draws it out, right, to say if you deliver this energy savings, this is what it's going to do in terms of GHG or carbon emissions. People were not paying attention to that, right? Now when you see Department of Environmental Affairs, they've zoned into that area. It tells a good story to say, actually, you know what, through our NCPC programs, this is what we've done. But also, I think, I didn't hear Moses actually mention, which is funny. I've had to find myself go back to some of the Moses equivalent guys who'd actually done the assessments for me to say, can you come back and just validate this for me jointly with the people who do our data verification, so that we can actually see that the savings we're realizing are true savings, right? So it's been a good thing for us because it's allowed for an open network, right? So that's good. Yes, we continue to learn. I think especially in this last sort of 18 months to 2 years, it's been difficult where I'm finding that I've had to be reactive to say, oh shucks, I've lost this engineer and that engineer, which means now I no longer have, or they've moved on to other roles. They're still within the organization, right? And one would have been a gentleman like Divesh. He's been appointed into sort of the beverages space, very much focused on process and water. But we had actually deliberately, when we started with the gentleman, we had invested so much in terms of making him my steam system and compressor system expert. So he had done the advanced courses. Now I have to find another gem within the business, right, that can actually be our expert. So it's multiple things, right? And as you can hear, touch on the different elements where we've realized the benefit. But because we could show the improvements, it has allowed for us to not be hesitant in actually being the first to put up a hand when you guys introduce new programs. I think when you did the RECP expert program, I was like, yay, we want to actually be part of it, right? We could have really done better in terms of our commitment into the program. But because you already know the success that we've managed to yield through the IEE programs, it's easier for us to actually then say, look, today we want to focus on water, bring in this course for us. And then also we get introduced to new experts.
Awesome. Rana, you're going to have the last word. So I'm going to bounce to Moses now. And Moses, the question I posed to you earlier is, what can the energy sectors, energy services sector, but also the broader energy sector do to make sure everything we've done in the last 10 years as a team doesn't get lost?
Yes, I think that's a very interesting and a very important question. Because I think what underpins whatever we do, it's the sustainable development goals. Beyond energy, there is people. So it's not energy on itself, but it's energy to try to bring a change that impacts people. So what I see that in order to uphold the legacy of IEE, we need to look at poverty alleviation, we need to look at the unemployment of the youth, and we need to improve access to energy by everybody who's able to do that. So my thinking is that I believe that there needs to be an upscaling of training or mentorship of the youth. South Africa has a lot of unemployed youth, which needs to be absorbed within the entrepreneurs in the energy sector. And there must be some incentive through government or through companies like Julie, where they actually employ or hire consultants that are focused in developing and using the new talent that is going to be the next energy services companies. And that can only be done through us. And it should be actually a very telling legacy of IEE, because it started with us, but it shouldn't end up with us. It shouldn't make us more richer, but it should make us be able to translate what we have learned to the next generations, which multiplies and then continue to do what we are doing. I think that would be the lasting legacy of IE project. It needs to touch people's lives.
Fantastic. Oh, thanks, Moses. And I think, Rana, if you're not sort of sitting here thinking, well, this is why I get up in the morning, this is why I do my job, because you can see, I mean, you've worked with Alf a lot, so you know, Alf's passion is not new to you, but you look at the Moseses and you look at the Julie Mtsekas and you look at the difference that this project has made to big companies, small companies, and everybody in both of their organizations. You can see that this project has had an impact. You can see that the work that you've done at the other side of the oceans in Vienna has actually changed lives here in Southern Africa. And so I just want to ask you to close in a minute with the last question, but I want to remind people on this meeting again of what I said earlier. If you haven't benefited from this yet, if you haven't looked to see how you can join in this initiative, why not? If you're a consultant or an energy services company, why are you not an expert like Moses? Why are you not able to integrate this into what you're doing? If you're a large company, why have you not seen energy savings through our various programs and with these methodologies? Please visit our website, go to the exhibition stand at the African Energy Indaba, download the financial guide. There's a nice new shiny tool that we've launched. It's a really comprehensive book on how to package a bankable business solution for green energy projects. Watch one of the 10 videos that we have there on how to implement these things we're talking about. Engage with us. If you really don't know which button to press first, email ncpc@csir, and we will put these contact details up at the end. But please don't be out in the cold. Don't watch this happening. Come and join us. So, Rana, from a UNIDO perspective, what have you guys put in place? And I believe there's a wonderful tools online, but there's also other projects that are happening to make sure that this does become a legacy, to make sure that the things that Moses and Julie and Alf are touching on now do not stop. Over to you.
Julie, you must have read my mind. I'm just sitting here and saying, really, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to hear it from beneficiaries of the project, because indeed it's really rewarding to see that the project has had a real impact and a great impact, and it's very much appreciated by everyone. So thank you so much for that, and you really read my mind. I would just also like to say, I mean, I second all of what has been said in terms of the subsidies. We really, I mean, we need to deal also with some of those challenges for us to really upscale nationally and internationally. Subsidies for sure, carbon disclosure and reporting, Julie, spot on. And then as well, I mean, capturing all of the funding issues that the SMEs are facing, and perhaps also looking into mechanisms to support SMEs and experts that are working on this in setting up the working capital or getting access to some level of working capital. So these are all issues that we could be continuing to work on. But essentially also working on more signals from the market to demand products and to demand, industries to be moving and taking that shift. So basically, there is a role there for government, there is a role for a private sector to put a price basically and to give that incentive for industries that are investing in these technologies to actually take that step and make them feel as well that this is not a wasted investment, and that at the end of the day, the consumers are going to be valuing more, a cheaper product that is not done, with the same sustainability in mind. So I just want to say there is like really still a lot to be done there in terms of working on creating the demand for, the products and industries that are working with us within the program. And as you said, we have made a deliberate effort in this year to actually develop tools that are available online that everyone can really access and benefit from. But beyond that, I mean, we are really now working on also targeting and supporting countries in reflecting this energy efficiency ambition in industry in NDCs, in the National Determined Contribution plans that many governments have pledged towards climate. We feel like there is not enough of that is being captured, and we don't have enough time. We have to elevate the discussion. We have to, you know, as also Alf said, I mean, we have to really bring that ownership as well from the top, and we have to make sure that it remains to be a priority at national level, at company level, at city level, and basically to continue taking that forward. So I would say our focus really now is increasing ambition, creating markets, and helping in creating demand, and then, you know, continuing to support countries that might not have benefited also from this program to really work on developing their capacities. And thank you again. It's really been very insightful and wonderful. I took a lot of notes as well, and so many points that I was like, yes, exactly. So thank you so much for bringing together such a great panel.
Thank you, Rana. Thank you, Alf. Thank you, Moses. Thank you, Julie. And thank you to the Africa Energy Indaba organizers. We have eaten up our time. We could take another 4 hours and we still wouldn't have burnt out our passion and our knowledge that we want to share. So go to our website, go to ncpc.co.za, contact us, and we'll answer any more questions you have. From all of us here at the Energy Efficiency Project, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.